When the millionaire shouted at his secretary, her response left the office in shock. The air was thick with tension as the clock ticked loudly in the ornate office, its sound almost mocking the quiet that loomed within. Richard Grayson, a millionaire with a ruthless reputation, paced like a caged tiger behind his mahogany desk. His suit was immaculate, his eyes cold as ice. Then, raising his voice that could shatter glass, he erupted, "How could you mess this up, Sarah?" The room held its breath, knowing that everyone was a witness to the explosion of chaos. Sarah, the secretary who breathed calm into the stormy office, stood frozen. Her hands trembled slightly, but there was something in her gaze. A glimmer, a spark of defiance danced behind her otherwise placid demeanor. Instead of crumbling, something shifted in her. She stood tall. The dozen employees nearby glanced at each other, their expressions reflecting total disbelief. "You don't get to talk to me like that," Sarah replied, her voice steady, yet tinged with an underlying fire. A collective gasp rippled through the office, like a wave crashing against rocks. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on their faces as if the universe itself was responding to the charged atmosphere. It was as if time slowed, hearts raced, breaths caught. Who was this woman challenging the powerful millionaire? What nerve did she find to respond this way? It was a marvel, a spectacle. Office politics brewed in a bubbling cauldron of potential fallout. Everyone was leaning in, fear and excitement tingling in their fingertips. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Richard's face contorted with rage, but beneath the anger, a flicker of something else: intrigue. Sarah took a step forward, challenging the very fabric of his authority. "If you think I'm the problem, you're mistaken. Fix your own mess." Her voice rang out clear, each word heavy with conviction. The tension was electric, grabbing hold of everyone in the room, choking them with anticipation. Moments stretched, breaths hitched, and the world outside seemed to vanish. Could she really stand up to him? What would happen next? The office held its collective breath, on the brink of something monumental. Then the unmistakable sound of a phone ringing cut through the silence, jarring reality back into focus. All eyes darted towards the ringing device as if it was a cue. What did that call bring? Secrets, revelations, or an unexpected twist in this dramatic showdown? What happened next could change everything. The ringing phone reverberated through the charged air, shattering the standoff as Richard's icy glare flicked toward the desk. He hesitated for a heartbeat, then snatched up the receiver as if it were a grenade. The tension in the room palpably shifted. The others exchanged anxious glances, sensing a pivot, a potential unraveling of the chaos before them. "Grayson," Richard barked, his voice clipped. Sarah held her breath, the embers of her defiance still sizzling in the air. Whatever was being discussed on the other end of the line clearly held weight. The color drained from Richard's face, a rare crack in his formidable facade. He remained silent, a startled statue, eyes darting toward the office door. In the silence, Sarah stepped back, sensing that whatever was being revealed was bigger than her confrontation. She could hear snippets through the receiver, vague, yet they landed heavy like bricks in her stomach. Words like audit, missing funds, and investigation pierced the air, sending tremors of disbelief rippling through the room. Richard's fist slammed down on the desk, jolting Sarah back to the moment. She fought to keep her ground as he hissed into the phone, "You better get your facts straight, or I will have your job." A bead of sweat trickled down his temple as he hung up, the sharp crack of the phone slamming down echoing through the office. The room buzzed now, not with anticipation but with fear. Astonishment morphed into unease, eyes widened as Richard, once a titan in his domain, suddenly appeared vulnerable. He turned, breathing heavily, scanning the faces of his employees as if they were stakes in a poker game he was losing. What the hell is going on? Someone whispered from the back. It wasn't just curiosity, it was panic unfolding. Realizing their uneasy alliance with Richard had shifted, Sarah felt a swell of courage. Maybe, she said, her voice nonchalant but filled with an underlying tension, it's time we talked about the real mess you've created. Her heart raced, excitement flickering in her veins. Richard's jaw tightened. You think this is a joke? I think you're about to be exposed. If you lose your empire, you'll need more than just an attitude to survive this. Her gaze was unwavering. A challenge. Realization dawned on Richard, and the storm clouds of rage returned, but now mixed with unease. He began to pace no longer the predator but a desperate man cornered by the jagged edges of his own mistakes. The murmurs surged, employees weighing in. What does she mean by that? Is the company really in trouble? Their voices hovered, a mix of whispered speculation and mounting dread. Then, without warning, the boardroom door burst open. An unfamiliar figure stepped in, bearing the weight of urgency. Mr. Grayson, we need a word, the man said, his gaze darting to the room filled with anxious faces. Now. Richard faltered, and Sarah seized the moment. The power dynamic teetered dangerously. She was no longer just Richard's secretary, she was a wild card in this high-stakes game. Who the hell are you? Richard snapped, but the newcomer held out a file, the seriousness of his stance instantly silencing Richard's bravado. The air thickened again, suspense rising palpably as the man opened the file. It's about the accounts. You're in more trouble than you think. The room shifted, ground shaking under unseen feet. Secrets. Lies. The foundation of everything Richard built was crumbling, and a new chapter was about to unfold. What had Sarah unknowingly stepped into? Could she use this moment to wrest control from Richard? Shadows cloaked the office, and the truth hung in the balance, revealing the faintest glimmers of hope amid fast-approaching darkness. Would she become a pawn in his game or the one who finally turned the tide? The tension nearly crackled in the air as the stranger, still gripping the file, stepped closer to Richard. The flickering fluorescent lights overhead caught the beads of sweat forming on Richard's brow, and the room remained locked in an unsettling silence. Employees stood frozen, caught between fear and curiosity. The newcomer's presence felt like a storm cloud brewing over the troubled ocean of their corporate lives. What's this about? Richard growled, his voice low and dangerous, but the panic was unmistakable. He was losing ground, and everyone could see it. That's what we need to discuss, the man said, casting a glance around the room. Before this office becomes a courtroom. A murmur rippled through the crowd. A courtroom? The words hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. She could sense the building chaos, the electric thrill of upheaval, and it fed her determination. Would someone please explain what the hell is going on? A voice piped up from the back. It was Mark, the usually timid project manager, his brow furrowed with anxiety. Richard clenched his jaw, glancing at Sarah with an expression that mixed anger and desperation. You've caused enough trouble, he spat, the accusation punctured with bitterness. Now you want to drag everyone down with you. But Sarah wasn't backing down. No one's dragging anyone down, Richard, she snapped, her voice stronger than she felt. You've been steering this ship toward disaster. We're just trying to save our jobs. Richard's eyes darkened, and his jaw muscles twitched. The anger there simmered just below the surface but was overshadowed by a flicker of fear. He turned back to the intruder. What do you want? The man flipped through the file, revealing enough paperwork to surely drown a ship. I'm not here to bargain. I'm with the Financial Oversight Board. You're under investigation for fraud. Gasps filled the room. The mention of fraud sent icy tendrils down Sarah's spine. This was bigger than she had realized. The walls were closing in around Richard, and she could almost feel the weight of history pressing down on his shoulders. Richard's composure slipped further, his face twisting into a mask of disbelief. I don't know what you think you've got, he stammered. This is nonsense. I run a legitimate company. What you run is a house of cards, the man countered, unaffected by Richard's bluster. I suggest you take a look at what I brought. You're about to lose everything. The room held its breath, the stakes clawing at everyone's throats. Richard was visibly unraveling, his bravado leaking like air from a punctured balloon. But amid this chaos, Sarah felt something awaken inside her, a sliver of hope intertwined with her growing resolve. Maybe it's time for a change, Richard, she said, her voice steady now. This company doesn't belong to just you anymore. We deserve to know the truth. Richard's eyes flicked toward her, a fresh wave of fury igniting within. You're playing a dangerous game, he warned, his voice low and dark, and then, without warning, the lights blinked, flickered, and went out, plunging the room into darkness. Gasps echoed, and panic bubbled as shadows danced amid the uncertainty. The distant sound of a generator clicking on was the only thing that broke the silence. When the lights flickered back on, Richard stood at the front, terror etched across his features, but it wasn't the fear of being caught, there was more. As they squinted against the harsh light, a figure in the doorway appeared, silhouetted against the fresh commotion. What did I miss? The newcomer asked, like a jester stepping into a tragedy, and all eyes turned toward the darkness behind him. Sarah's heart raced. Who were they, and what could they possibly bring to an already crumbling empire? Richard's facade faltered, leaving Sarah questioning everything she thought she knew. The truth was a dangerous weapon, and now it seemed there would be more than just Richard to contend with. What did this shadowy figure mean for her fight? As secrets continued to murmur through the air, she wondered if the real battle was just beginning. The newcomer stepped fully into the room, shedding the darkness like a cloak. His presence was magnetic, drawing every eye. Sarah strained to get a better look, each detail sharp in her mind: his tailored suit, the calm demeanor, and an almost mocking grin that only escalated the tension. Suddenly, the stakes felt impossibly higher. Good afternoon, everyone, he said, as if he'd just walked into a casual meeting and not an impending storm. I'm Oliver Shaw, legal advisor for the Oversight Board. His voice rolled over the crowd like silk, but there was an edge beneath it. I believe we have some serious matters to address, don't we? Richard's face went pale. You shouldn't be here, he hissed, a low growl of panic threading through his words. It was a pathetic attempt to regain control, and everyone could see it crumbling further. Get out. This isn't your fight. Oliver shrugged, a nonchalant gesture that spoke of boldness. Oh, but it is, Richard. This is everyone's fight now. You've made it our business. He waved the thick file casually, making the binders rattle. And trust me, everyone is going to want to be part of this conversation. Murmurs erupted again, this time louder, more frantic. The employees shifted uneasily, unsure whether to support Richard or rally behind this newcomer who threatened to upend everything. Sarah's heart raced. Oliver's presence felt like a gust of wind, sweeping away the dust of complacency and leaving every unaddressed issue bare. She took a slow breath, summoned her courage, and stepped forward. What's in that file? She asked, feeling the eyes of her colleagues on her, the weight of their hopes pushing her onward. Oliver's gaze sharpened. Ah, a brave soul. I admire that, he said, nodding appreciatively. In this file lies evidence, expense reports, illicit transactions, and some very questionable account activities. Your friend Richard here has managed to implicate all of you in something that could end your careers. Richard blanched. Shut your mouth, Shaw. You don't know what you're talking about. His voice was a desperate plea, but the tremor gave him away. Actually, Oliver replied, his smile growing, I know more than you think. This company is a ticking time bomb, and the Oversight Board is here to defuse it or watch it explode. He casually laid the file down on the closest desk, making sure everyone could see the looming threat it represented. The air thickened, suffocated by the revelation. People were shifting, whispering, glancing from Richard to Sarah as though expecting her to resolve the spiraling chaos. Everyone was now a part of this game, a fight they never asked for, but one they'd all have to engage in if they wanted to survive. What happens now? Mark's voice trembled from the back of the room, surrounded by colleagues caught between fear and an exhilarating sense of rebellion. Oliver raised an eyebrow, glancing around. That's the question, isn't it? There's still time to turn things around. But it will require everyone's cooperation, loyalty, maybe even a bit of sacrifice. He flashed a knowing look at Richard, who stood frozen and seething, a predator cornered. Sarah felt the urgency build within her. This was it. She had to act, to fight for her colleagues and herself. What if we expose him? What if we unite before she could finish? Richard's voice thundered, shaking the very foundations of their morale. You think you can turn against me? I'll bury you all. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Laughter erupted from Oliver, deep and resonant, slicing through Richard's bravado. Ah, but you see, Richard, the more you threaten, the more you reveal your fragility. Let us see how long you can keep up the facade. The walls began to close in. The only thing dependable now was the certainty that the office had shifted irrevocably. The tension was woven tighter, the stakes higher. Even if Richard was a monster, they were now wrestling with a greater evil lurking in the shadows. Sarah felt her resolve solidify, driven not just by fear, but by the fire of defiance. It's time we all make a stand, she said, looking around, faces awash with fear and determination. Oliver pointedly met her gaze. Very well, let us see how far this goes. Outside the ordinary, they were all trapped, teetering on the edge of a precipice. As Richard's furious glare turned toward Sarah, one question echoed: could she rally them together before the mounting collapse pulled them all under? With room for one more shocking moment, the lights flickered again, a jolt that sent everyone reeling. Who else was watching? And what would the next dark turn reveal? A palpable silence enveloped the office, thickening the air as Richard's furious gaze bore down on Sarah. The tension hung like a heavy curtain, ready to drop at any moment. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the storm to break. Richard's voice finally cut through the stillness, laced with venom. You want to rally them? You think you're any different from the rest? You're a cog in this machine, just like the others. You'll never get anywhere without me. His words struck like a hammer, but rather than backing down, Sarah straightened her spine, feeling a surge of adrenaline. No, Richard. We're not cogs, we're people. You've been running this company like a dictatorship, and it's time someone stood up to you. Whispers flared around her. A mixture of disbelief and admiration circulated, sparking courage in her colleagues. It was a tiny spark, but in that moment, it felt electric. Oliver's grin widened, an unsettling mix of amusement and approval. Yes. This is exactly what I was hoping for. But we must be strategic. If you want to topple a giant, you need to be ready to take the hits. Take the hits? Richard scoffed, a faux bravado cracking through his facade. Do you really think I'll stand here and let my empire crumble? You're all too scared to face the consequences of defying me. His voice echoed like thunder, but the cracks in his armor were starting to show. Sarah felt a knot form in her stomach. And what if we're not? What if we all stand together? What can you do then? Think you can take me on in the court of public opinion? Do you even know what I control? Newspapers, lawyers, private eyes. His voice simmered with fury. And I don't even need to lift a finger. You'll watch your lives unravel. Not if we act first, one of Sarah's co-workers, Melanie, chimed in, emboldened by Sarah's bravery. We have the power to expose what's really going on. Richard threw back his head, laughing, but the sound was hollow. You think that sort of weakness could ever intimidate me? Tell me, who do you think will believe your little fairy tales against me? You have no proof. Maybe not yet, Oliver interjected, his tone shifting subtly. But who said anything about waiting? Fear is a powerful weapon, Richard, and right now it seems that you're the only one wielding it. Sarah felt the tide beginning to turn. This felt like a gamble, but if it worked, it could change everything. Then let us set a trap. We can gather our evidence, confront you directly, make you show your hand. I know we can expose you. Eyes darted around the room, weighing the risks and rewards. Each person was calculating their own fallout. Could they really trust one another? Or was Richard right? Were they doomed to fail? Just then, the office lights flickered again, creating a heartbeat of darkness, and when they returned, Sarah noticed the grim determination on Oliver's face. We can move quickly, but we have to do it with precision. Make no mistake, Richard will stop at nothing to save himself. Richard's jaw clenched, his expression shifting from anger to something almost primal, a wounded animal ready to strike. You think you're all so clever? You'll regret crossing me. Regret is not in my vocabulary, Sarah replied, her heart racing. But betrayal is. You'll find we won't go down without a fight. With that defiance, she could see the flicker of hope igniting amongst her colleagues. Richard's intimidation tactics were failing, and perhaps for the first time, he felt the undertow of fear himself. Oliver stepped forward, raising a hand to quiet the rising voices. Let us be clear. This operation requires absolute loyalty and discretion. We can't rush this. We need a plan. There are ears everywhere. Before the conversations resumed, a sudden commotion outside the office drew their attention. The door flew open, and a figure stepped into the chaotic scene, a company security officer, clearly alarmed and out of breath. What is going on in here? He demanded, eyes darting between the group and Richard. Tension spiraled once more, the room re-energized with fresh uncertainty. Could they trust this new player? Were they on the verge of discovery, or had they just fallen deeper into Richard's web? Sarah's mind raced with possibilities and dangers. She felt that everything was about to explode into chaos, but what she didn't know was just how close to the edge they were teetering, and in that charged moment, a single thought echoed in her mind: they were fighting not just against Richard, but against a system that loomed larger than any of them had ever imagined. How far down the rabbit hole would they have to go before they could truly take back their lives? The security officer, Mark, stepped further into the room, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. The atmosphere was so thick with tension that it felt like a living thing, ready to snap. I heard shouting. You all know the rules about loud disagreements. What is happening? Richard's bravado flickered but quickly returned. It's nothing, Mark. Just a discussion about strategy. He waved a dismissive hand, but his voice cracked slightly, betraying his mounting unease. Discussion? Mark echoed, his gaze unflinching. It looks more like insurrection to me. The words hung in the air like a loaded gun. Sarah's heart raced as Mark assessed the room. Could he sense their growing rebellion? She glanced at her colleagues, searching for support. Melanie's eyes were wide with trepidation, but Oliver stood firm, challenge bubbling beneath the surface. Mark, Oliver said, stepping into the open, this isn't just about strategy. It's about truth. Richard's been running this company into the ground, and we're not going to take it anymore. The air felt charged, every word laced with adrenaline. Richard's face turned a shade of crimson as his lips tightened. You can't speak to him like that. Mark answers to me. He barked, his voice cracking. The mask of authority was slipping. Mark looked between them, a frown etched across his features. What truth are you talking about? His expression softened, revealing curiosity behind his initial caution. If something's going on, I need to know. Everything Richard told you to take at face value is a lie. Sarah stepped closer, her voice steady. He's been mismanaging funds, exploiting employees, and you have no evidence. Richard screamed, the wrath in his tone slicing through the fragile truce that had begun to form. He looked like a cornered animal, teeth bared and waiting to lash out. Not yet, she shot back, determination crystallizing in her words. But we're putting an end to this. You can join us, or you can stay in the dark with Richard. The silence that followed was deafening, a moment that felt suspended in time. Mark looked between Sarah and Richard, weighing the risk. Sarah could see the conflict within him, the unspoken possibilities swirling like an approaching storm. "Your move, Mark," Oliver urged, stepping forward, confidence radiating from him. "It's time to choose a side." Richard glared, desperation evident in his eyes. "This is a mistake you'll all regret. You think the law protects you? I have connections, powerful people who will crush you." "Let them," Sarah retorted, her voice a whisper of steel. "Do you think we'll just roll over? We're ready to expose everything." Mark's jaw tightened as he processed their defiance. The office lights flickered ominously again, casting shifting shadows across the room. It felt as if the very building breathed in anticipation of what would come next. "I need to speak to the board," Mark finally said, breaking the silence. "You guys are playing a dangerous game here." Richard's laughter returned, wild and unhinged. "The board?" he taunted. "They've all followed my lead. You think they'll side with you against me?" Sarah stepped closer, her heart pounding as hope battled skepticism. "We can change that. We can show them the truth, the real Richard and what he's hiding. I'll show you how far I can make this go." Richard spat, the venom seeping from his words like poison. "You'll all be out of jobs before you even know what hit you. Or maybe you'll just be out of power," Oliver countered, standing tall, a faint grin flirting at his lips. "You might just want to start watching your back." Before Richard could respond, there was a sudden crash from the hallway, followed by shouting voices filtering into the room. It cut through the tension, shocking everyone. Mark turned instinctively toward the door, as if sensing the impending chaos. "What the hell?" Mark began, stepping back, uncertainty written all over his face. Sarah's stomach dropped. She could feel the tremors of change rippling through the air. Whatever was happening outside was a distraction, a potential turning point. "Stay sharp, Oliver," whispered, his voice low. "This is our moment. We need to use it." Fear danced in Sarah's chest, but somewhere, deep within, a flicker of hope burned bright. Outside, the chaos escalated, and she knew they were at a precipice. What waited beyond the office door? Could it be their salvation or a deeper, darker pit? Whatever it was clear they were about to step into something far bigger than any of them had anticipated. "Are we ready?" Sarah breathed, uncertainty flooding her. In that instant, everything hinged on their next move. Would they brave the storm, or would they be swept away in its fury? The crash echoed like thunder in the confined space, a fracture in reality that jerked everyone from their heated exchanges. Sarah exchanged a glance with Oliver, their faces taut with shared fear. Richard's bravado crumbled, revealing panic as he struggled to maintain his grip on the illusion of control. Mark's instincts kicked in, he moved instinctively toward the door. "I'll check it out. Stay here." His voice was authoritative, but there was tremor underneath, a vulnerability they couldn't ignore. "Are you crazy?" Richard barked. "We need to stay inside. Whatever's out there could be dangerous. If we don't know what's going on, we can't protect ourselves," Mark shot back, already stepping toward the door. The shouting intensified, sounds of shoving and frantic movements bleeding through, setting nerves on edge. As Mark pulled the door open, a wave of heat and noise rushed in, enveloping them. He stepped into the tumult, leaving the others suspended in uncertainty. Sarah's heart raced in desperation, his absence felt like losing their only lifeline against Richard's wrath. "Do you hear that?" Melanie whispered, eyes darting. The voices outside weren't just angry, they were filled with passion, a unity that felt almost electric. She caught Oliver's gaze, a spark of hope gathering. "Maybe it's the employees," Oliver declared. "They might be standing up against Richard, joining us without even knowing." Before Sarah could respond, a figure stumbled through the doorway, one of the IT guys, breathless and wide-eyed. "They're rallying. Outside." "There," he gasped, struggling for breath. "They're ready to march right in." The implication slammed into Sarah like a fist. Could it be that the tide was turning? Their colleagues banded together against Richard. She was filled with a mixture of hope and dread, her heart beating erratically. This is it, she exclaimed, a mixture of fear and thrill flooding her senses. We can't let this chance slip away. Oliver moved closer to the door. We have to show them we're on their side. They need a leader. His eyes gleamed with fervor. Leader? Sarah asked, her throat tightening at the thought. What if Richard stops them? He's not going to sit back and let this happen. Then we have to act fast, Oliver replied, determination shining in his voice. If Mark can get everyone fired up. That was when the next crash happened. The door swung wider, shaking on its hinges. Mark pushed back, his face pale, breath labored. It's spiraling out there. They're demanding not just answers, but his voice trailed off, an edge of dread creeping in like ice. What? What are they demanding? Richard's voice was filled with irritation, making it harder for Sarah to believe he still thought he had power. Justice. They want Richard out. Mark's revelation was met with a wave of disbelief. The words sunk in, sending ripples through the tension-laden air. Richard's laughter broke the silence, manic and hollow. You think they'll side with you? I run this company. I control their jobs. But even as he spoke, the anxiety crackled around him, turning his bravado into dust. They're not yours to control anymore. Sarah shouted, rallying her fear into fierce resolve. Mark. You need to go out there now. Gather them. Show them we can take this fight to the board. Will you come too? Mark hesitated, torn between the chaos ahead and the uncertainty behind. Of course, Oliver interjected, fists clenching at his sides. We're not staying back while the world outside burns. Sarah's heart raced as every word fueled a newfound fire in her blood. We can't let Richard silence us. This is ours. It's time to reclaim what he has stolen. With a shared nod, they stepped toward the door, ready to charge into the storm of uncertainty. What awaited them out there was shrouded in chaos and courage, a world threatening to swallow them, but they were willing to face it together. As they gathered their resolve and surged forward, the building trembled, shadows flickering ominously overhead. What awaited them outside? Was this the end of Richard's reign, or was it just the beginning of another twisted game? There, at the threshold, they could taste victory or be trapped in a cyclone of ruin. Would they rise to the occasion, or would the storm break them? The answers lurked just beyond the door. As they barreled through the door, the chaos outside was a swirling tempest of bodies, voices, and emotions. Distant shouts mingled with the pounding of their hearts, creating a cacophony that threatened to drown out anything else. The scene in front of them was staggering. A mass of employees surged toward the entrance, faces determined. Some were even chanting, their outrage ringing like a battle cry against the walls of the company they once revered. Mark, someone called from the crowd, eyes gleaming with fervor. Is it true? Are we really standing up to him? But Richard's voice, cold and cutting, sliced through the noise. You will all regret this. I own you. You don't dare defy me. His fury bounced off the walls, but it was met with a defiance that crackled in the air like static. You're not our boss anymore, a woman yelled back, fists raised. Not today. The wave of solidarity surged forward, carrying Sarah, Oliver, and Mark along with it. They found themselves at the forefront a mere few feet from Richard. The sight of him red-faced and wild-eyed ignited something fierce within them. Just a week ago, he had seemed untouchable. Now, he looked like a cornered animal, desperate and dangerous. Let's take this to the board. Sarah shouted, her voice ringing out like a clarion call amidst the roar. She sensed Oliver's hand on her back, steadying her, pushing her forward. The crowd responded, roaring in approval, arms waving, determination radiating like heat. To the board. To the board. Mark turned to Sarah, urgency competing with adrenaline. We need to get in front of them. Take charge. But before they could move, the door slammed shut, causing the group to gasp. The face of Richard twisted like a storm cloud, defiance clinging to every pore. I will not let you take this company, he spat, eyes darting around, seeking leverage. Now's our moment. Oliver urged, stepping closer to Richard. You can't bully us anymore. Your power ends here. The older man took a menacing step forward, finger pointing accusingly. Who do you think you are? Just some little wannabes thinking they can shake the Hall of Giants. We're not little. We're the backbone of this place. Sarah shot back, her voice rising above the din. Her heart thundered in her chest, but caught in this whirlwind, she felt alive like nothing could hold her back. You've kept us silent for too long, Richard. Your reign of terror stops today. Around them, the energy was palpable, a living thing that surged and twitched as they rallied together. Yet, even in that moment of empowerment, a shadow flickered across Sarah's mind. Richard was unpredictable, and desperate people often make dangerous moves. Suddenly, Richard's demeanor shifted, a cruel grin spreading across his face. Then let me show you just how much power I truly have. A hush fell over the crowd as shock set in. Did he really mean it? What was to come next? The air thickened with tension, and every heart in the crowd stilled as Richard raised his hand, an ominous gesture that felt like the calm before a storm. What is he going to do? Someone murmured, fear creeping back into their ranks. Just as his lips parted, a loud bang echoed in the distance, jolting everyone out of their daze. The surrounding tension sparkled what was happening. Their unity shifted, nerves coursing through them like an electric shock. In that moment, Sarah felt the ground shift beneath their cause, the stakes rising higher than she had ever imagined. Did they stand on the verge of victory, or were they venturing recklessly into a trap set to ensnare them? With the echoes of rebellion ringing in their ears and uncertainty fueling their resolve, they braced for whatever was about to unfold. Would Richard's wrath descend upon them, or was this the moment they had been waiting for? The answer loomed overhead, weighty and bright as the building vibrated with the sound of reality cracking open. What lay beneath the surface? Would they emerge stronger or be ground to dust by the weight of their ambition? The air buzzed like a live wire as the sound of the explosion rippled through the crowd, sending shockwaves of fear unchecked. A collective gasp surged, eyes darting in confusion. Sarah's heart raced, the beat pounding against her ribcage like thunder. She turned to Oliver, their fears mirrored in the wide, terrified eyes around them. Stay focused. Mark yelled, trying to hold the group together. We can't lose our nerve now. Richard faltered for a fraction of a second, the chaos outside rattling his solid facade, but then he firmed up, eyes glinting with manic delight. You think you can stand and fight? You're all just pawns in my game. With renewed fury, the crowd pushed forward, bolstered by the sound of solidarity ringing out around them. Pawns no more. A voice cried from the back, inciting a ripple of defiance through the masses. Let us take this to the boardroom. Sarah shouted once more, feeling the force of her words like a physical push. They have to hear us. We're done cowering. Yet, as they moved toward the inner sanctum of corporate power, a cold sense of dread crept in. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking straight into a trap, like moths drawn to an unwelcome flame. Outside, sirens wailed, piercing the thick tension like a knife. The sound brought an unsettling clarity, a reminder that they were not just staging a mutiny but also challenging something bigger than all of them. It could lead to chaos, or worse. Do you hear that? Someone shouted, panic creeping into the voice. Focus. Mark insisted again, raising his arms, trying to keep everyone's attention. We can't let fear stop us. Remember why we're here. But Richard stepped back, a devilish grin plastered across his face, basking in the frenzy he seemed to control. While you were busy playing the heroes, I've been laying my own plans. What? Sarah's gut twisted. She didn't like where this was heading. Had he anticipated this? Listen. You think you're ready to stand against me? Richard shouted over the din, and he spoke as if reveling in their uncertainty. I could destroy your lives with a flick of my wrist. You think this is just about a job? I'm not the only one holding the cards. The weight of his implication hit hard, and doubt seeped back into the crowd. A flicker of panic rippled through the voices. Would they lose everything for standing up against this tyrant? No one wanted to be the first to admit it, but fear had a way of looking out for itself. The answer loomed above them, too heavy to be ignored. While Richard thrived on the chaos, Sarah drew a shaky breath. We won. Back down. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed from both sides as security personnel moved in, clad in dark uniforms that seemed like grim shadows. They scanned the crowd with cold, lifeless eyes, turning everything on its head with their mere presence. What now? Someone whispered, terror spilling into the air. Listen. Sarah shouted again, muted by the encroaching danger. We stand together. But before she could finish, a loud crack rang out. A figure in the back screamed as a canister flew through the air, landing with a thud. Gas began to seep from it, curling like a cold snake, creeping toward them. Gas! Oliver shouted, suddenly facing away. Get back! Everybody out! Panic surged like wildfire as the crowd began to disperse in every direction. Sarah's mind raced. Every second felt like a lifetime. They had to make it to safety, but what about Richard? What about their cause? Would they be lost among the chaos? A hard shove knocked her off balance, Oliver's grip slipping as the sea of bodies surged away from the thickening miasma of gas. Sarah! Come on! He beckoned, grasping at vacuums of air. We can't stay here. She turned back, desperation flooding her thoughts. What had they triggered? Richard was lost in shadow now, laughing in the eye of the storm like he thrived on their fear, like it was just the beginning. But as they fled into the unknown, a chilling thought wormed its way into her head. What if they had just stirred the monster from its long slumber? With each step back, they moved further into chaos and further from victory. As Sarah stumbled to keep up with the escaping throng, her mind raced. Was this really it? Had they just lost everything? The blaring alarms echoed the questions in her chest as she fought to hold on to hope. With Richard stirring, and the gas closing in, she understood no way was this over, but what else awaited them in the dark spaces between fear and bravery? What would they have to sacrifice to wrest control back from Richard's manic clutches? The gas poured through the office like a sinister fog, cold and suffocating. Panic raced through Sarah as chaos erupted around her. She could still hear Richard's derisive laughter trailing behind, a cruel reminder that, for every step they took toward freedom, Richard's influence loomed larger. Sarah! This way! Cried Oliver, his voice cutting through the frenzy. He was a beacon, leading a way out of the madness. Her heart raced as she instinctively followed, weaving through the throng of frightened employees. The desperation in their eyes mirrored her own. They were in this together now, a band forged in fear and rebellion, moving toward the nearest emergency exit. Sarah felt the tide of bodies pushing toward the door. Mark was nearby, waving them on, determination etched on his face. Stay close! He shouted, urgency fueling his every word. Just as they neared the exit, Richard's voice thundered behind them again. You think this is over? I will bring you all down. There's nowhere to hide. The threat hung heavy in the air, chilling Sarah to her core. But she couldn't let fear take root. Not now. With a final push, they burst through the doors and into the open air, the sounds of chaos behind them growing muted. Fresh, cool air filled her lungs, a stark contrast to the stale tension they had left behind. But outside, the scene was terrifying. Employees from different departments had teamed up, now rallying toward a common goal. They shouted against authority, voices mingling like notes in a wild symphony. Excitement electrified the atmosphere, infusing Sarah with an unexpected surge of hope. Is this what we were fighting for? She wondered, scanning faces both familiar and unfamiliar. The masses in front of them, stirred by Oliver's call to action and emboldened by a shared yearning for change, had grown larger, feeding on collective determination. "Let us go!" Oliver exclaimed, recocking their drive. "We need to stand together. If we confront this now, we can take back what he has stolen from us." As they moved toward the gathering, the crowd amassed around them, drawn by Oliver's magnetism and bolstered by the belief that change was possible. He raised his arms, amplifying his presence. "Listen. Richard may believe he controls you, but you hold the power. Look around, this is your company too." A chorus of voices rose in response, echoing the fight that had ignited within each of them. "We are not afraid. We are not alone." Richard's face surfaced from behind the building, twisted with wrath. He was rallying security personnel in a frenzy, barking commands as if he could stifle the uprising through sheer force. But the employees rallied, emboldened by the realization that together they were stronger. "Remember what he has done," Sarah shouted to the crowd, her voice amplified by adrenaline. "He has hidden the truth from you, and it's time to expose it." And with that, the collective anger shifted to action. Mark and Oliver forged ahead, guiding the group toward the boardroom, a battleground of sorts. Behind them, Richard fumed, realizing how quickly the tide had turned. "Get back, you fools!" he roared, but his words bounced back at him, swallowed by the rising tide of rebellion. Sarah felt their determination like a palpable force, driving them forward. This was their moment. As they stormed the boardroom, uncertainty hung in the air. The board members stared wide-eyed at the unstoppable wave of employees crashing through the door, a sea of determined faces staring back at the people who had long been ignored. "Richard Grayson has betrayed you," an employee shouted, giving voice to the inner truth they had all felt but feared to admit. "We deserve answers, and we deserve change." The board members shuffled nervously, the energy in the room thickening like a storm about to break. Richard, now a shadow of his former self, stepped forward, but it was evident that his facade had crumbled. "You don't know what you're doing," he snapped, his voice losing its earlier bravado. "You'll ruin this company. You'll ruin your careers." Sarah squared her shoulders, anchoring herself amid the shifting dynamics. "Richard, it is you who have ruined it. The truth will come out, whether you like it or not. We're done being pawns in your game." A murmur surged through the crowd, a mixture of fear and exhilaration, but an undeniable sense of unity put fire in their eyes. "Let us make sure that truth is loud, undeniable, and impossible to ignore," Oliver asserted, surveying the room confidently. "You can't hide from what's right." Hope hung on the precipice of their collective will. This was not just a rebellion against Richard, it was a declaration of their rights. They moved closer together, anchoring not just to eliminate fear but to enable change. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Sarah knew this was their moment, not just to fight for their jobs, but to reclaim their dignity. And in that small yet powerful gathering, they understood one universal truth: united, they were unstoppable. "Let us speak out," someone shouted, and the chant grew louder, echoing off the boardroom walls. The tide of change was upon them, a wave they would ride straight through the heart of Richard's tyranny. As the voices melded into one powerful roar, Sarah understood, they weren't just challenging Richard, they were ready to reclaim their lives. With one last look at the doorway and the crumbling figure of Richard behind them, she felt fear transform into hope. This was just the beginning. Now that they had taken a stand, there was no turning back. With renewed purpose resonating in their hearts, they rushed forward into a future waiting to be defined together, and as they stood united, the voices crescendoed, mingling hope, courage, and accountability into a force that no authority could suppress. Now, this moment was theirs, but you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow this community. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending, because we want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this epic conclusion unfolds. Your support makes all the difference, and only true fans understand the importance of standing together in moments like this.